Okay, we are here with Shinjini Das. She is a writer, an engineer, and a media company founder at Das Media Group. Shinjini, welcome to the program so much.
Yes, John, it's Shinjini. You almost
Shinjini,
got
my
it. Yes,
apologies.
yes, Shinjini. And no, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm just really excited to speak with you. I feel like your last name is kind of hard too, so we relate, you
Yeah,
know.
we have that in common. It's
So,
such a pain, so I apologize for mispronouncing it. But I really am excited to be able to have you on today because I think the work you're doing in trying to understand how people are motivated is
yeah.
incredibly important. And so, before getting into some of the theories of how we motivate people, I wanted
Yeah.
to just ask you, what inspired you to go down this path and truly study how people are motivated?
Yeah, and I'm so happy that you mentioned this from almost an academic perspective, John, because I'm an industrial engineer from Georgia Tech, and like you, my background is academic. My background is, research and studying and data science, and so I think that informs how I approach really anything, which is why like our inner nerd never sleeps, right? The nerd that comes out, all the time, and so you're absolutely right. I do study how people are motivated, specifically how go-getters are motivated, right? And so I think for me, it was a combination of just life factors. And I've always had this very disparate set of skills. I'm a writer, like you said, I'm a speaker, but I'm also an engineer. And so growing up, I always wondered that where does this all fit? Because it was becoming very difficult, John, to find a job that allowed me to do all of it. You know what I mean? That allowed me to use my engineering brain, but also write, but also speak. And frankly, it became just really difficult to actually close to impossible. And so it was sort of a fork in the road pretty early on where I realized that, you know what? If I have to do this, I have to probably create my own job. That's probably what I have to do because it's just, and even my peers, John, a lot of them who are engineers, obviously I have a lot of peers, not the greatest speakers, not the greatest writers.
I
And
know
so,
that well myself as a project manager. I get to work with the folks. That's why we get to
yeah.
present the progress that's done.
Yeah, right. And so it's this idea, I knew pretty early on that if I have to use all of my skills, I probably have to do it myself. And so that's honestly, long story short, the media path I was discovered basically is what happened. So I was on Twitter, I was tweeting, girls should be go-getters, women should learn how to code, all this stuff. And I actually got discovered is what happened. And my publicist found me and she said, you need to be on TV. I think she also recognized, John, that just by existing, I speak to and relate to a market that has never been spoken to or related to before. And actually, I'm also talking about the educated, white upper middle class market in America. If you think about it, if I were to ask you who your role model is on TV or in the media, you may struggle to say something. You may struggle to actually give me an answer because it's a combination of things. They're very successful, but maybe you don't really admire them.
Sure.
They're very successful. Or in my case, a lot of my just heroes didn't go to school. So all dropouts, dropouts from college, dropouts from high school, which is fantastic. If that's what you want to do, wow, amazing. You do you. But for me, as a college graduate, I want a master's degree. I mean, I'm a highly educated individual. Who do I look up to? And so it was this confluence of, cultures and issues and just who I am that almost landed me in the media. And then the media company, again, the current infrastructure isn't built for me, and I'm a very high achieving person. I'm a very talented person. I'm a very driven person. I don't really fit in anywhere, and I wasn't really comfortable becoming an anchor or whatever, I don't know, TV personality, and that's it. And so I realized that in order for me to actually change this whole system, I got to go the Tyler Perry road. I have to create my own infrastructure. I have to build my own, platform. I have to build my studio Oprah style. And that's what I'm doing. And I firmly believe when all of this is said and done, you will find me with Oprah and Tyler Perry. Because honestly, I think they're the only two. Like I can't even think of others who are at that level of just self-made. They created that platform themselves, created the company themselves, hired people. I mean, they both own their stuff, which in the
Yeah.
media is super rare. So that's the path that I'm on, owned and operated, motivating go-getters to make the first move to go get their goals. And we're a motivational media content company.
Yeah, and I think it's especially helpful to, if you're gonna be this self-made individual, it's
Yeah,
important to understand the motivation side itself.
yeah,
One of the things that I had seen as a key theme within your book, Unapologetically Shinjini, you had basically had this theme of self-love. And I think
yeah.
you really need this idea of self-love if you're gonna take this chance of trying to build something on your own and creating your own job, because frankly, most people don't end up creating something. They do work at other places and are reliant on other people's thoughts and direction. I wanted to understand from your perspective, what does self love really mean to you?
Yeah, totally. So, John, I think self-love, it's this idea that I'm worth it, I'm glowing, I'm radiant, I'm beautiful. And this idea that, the universe is within me. I am the universe, and I have this saying in my mind because I've been really reading about feminine energy and, all this stuff because at Georgia Tech, I mean, it's all guys, right? And so for me, it's like, how do I just, delve into that part of myself, right? And so, I've been reading a lot, researching a lot, and it's this idea of life force. So feminine energy is creative force, it's life force. We give birth, you don't, and so it's this idea that I am the universe, and I'm a creative spirit, and I give birth to, companies, I give birth to humans. I'm a creative life force, and that's who I am. And so I think that's the vibe that I really go off of when I think about self-love and self-respect and self-awareness and all the things that I talk about and I tweet about and my 5 secrets of a go-getter. It really is about that vibe. It's that I am the universe within me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that is a very important first step to being able to motivate others, is they have
Yeah.
to see that you are motivated and that you like who
Yeah.
you are yourself. And so I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
obviously there's a lot of different ways you try to apply motivation. We were just talking about self-motivation, but how do you try and motivate like individuals compared to like groups? I feel like it's a very different process trying to go one-on-one compared to one to many.
Yeah, that's a really cool question, John. I think I'm gonna take can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. So, yeah, headphones. That's why I'm in meetings all day, John. They're dead. Yeah. So it's a really good question. I actually feel like the more I'm growing in my media career, John, the more I realize that I think my personal strength, as everything, as speaker, as a motivator, as an individual, is I'm a one-on-one person, and so when you say group, I actually like to look at it as a series of one-on-one interactions, because if you think about it, even in my experiences, John, let's say I speak at a university,
Mhm.
pretty much everyone in that audience has been somehow affiliated to some group or organization that was invited for that speech. So for example, my first professional speech ever, because I'm a public speaker, right? So all throughout high school, I have my trophies right here, won everything, right? Georgia Tech commencement speaker at 22. And I actually became pro at 24, meaning I got my first check for speaking at 24 because I was a part of a speaking agency. My first paid speech, John, was at the University of Indianapolis, and it was a diversity lecture series. So, like, when I look at that, it was literally hundreds of people in the audience. But to me, I didn't look at it as, wow, it's hundreds of people. This is so overwhelming. I actually looked at it as there are students here, there are some faculty, very, very diverse, all races, all ethnicities, all genders, all backgrounds, and they're all, affiliated to this institution. So I actually look at it as you're all multiple variations of the same DNA.
Mm.
That's what I look at it as. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And so,
no.
like, if you see who follows me on Twitter, John, it's a lot of people from very similar countries with similar life situations. The women are just struggling, to find anyone who's not struggling so that they can look up to them. Men are struggling with a lot of mental health problems that they can't reveal to people. So there are use cases, is what I'm saying, for my demographic. And so when I look at this one to many, I'm actually not overwhelmed and scared and confused, because one to many almost is a combination or a summation of many ones.
Mm. I think that makes a lot of sense. It really does come down to just understanding one's audience and who you are speaking with. Because
Yeah.
right at the end of the day, motivation is a very personal factor. I think the last question I want to ask you in this first part is, I think there's multiple levels of motivation. Like,
Hmm.
for instance, you could care about something, but
Yeah.
you're not ready to take action on something.
Yeah.
How do you feel like we can motivate people to that action step and beyond just caring?
Yeah. So that's actually my brand, right? If you notice, it's very action driven, right? And it's, again, my sort of tagline and what I keep saying is motivate go getters to make the first move to go get their goals, right? So if you want a raise and you're just kind of sitting there, and let's say you DM me and say, listen, my boss asked me and offered me a raise. I would not actually call you a go getter, John.
Mm.
I would call you you're just hanging out. You're just waiting, right place, right time. Now, if you told me that, Shinjini, I picked up the phone and I called my boss and I told him or her why I deserve a raise, that is a go-getter.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So I think it's this ideology and this difference that I'm propagating and sharing, which is based on action. And so I think ultimately, John, the pain has to be great enough for you to take action. Something that I've learned and realized, even within myself, is I started a media company because I was so frustrated with the lack of motivational media content, role models, etc. So if you think about it, the pain got too high for me to quit everything and leave everything and do this. And so I think the same way about my audience is your pain great enough to where you are ready to take action? And if it's not, then I guess you're just going to be kind of average and mediocre and getting by. But if your pain is really great, you will do something about it and you will become a go-getter. I have no doubt.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to pause this conversation and have people join us in part two, because I have some use cases that want to test how we test that pain that people feel to really get that motivation going. So join us in part two, where we have that conversation about how do we actually get people to take that action and feel enough pain where they know they can't just wait anymore. So see you soon. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of The Hill of Roses. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you did, please let us know by subscribing to our channel, liking today's video, and sharing the video with your friends. Also, if you want to be notified, please make sure you hit the bell when you subscribe. Finally, if you want to find more of our network's content, please go to thehillofroses.com. With that being said, we love y'all for helping the movement grow, and we hope you're staying rosy out there.